This is a brief video on how to select your task-based simulations, and after you complete them, then how to report those completed task-based simulations so you receive credits for the simulations. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we go about identifying and selecting the task-based simulations. Okay, now we are in our MACC 540 class, and I have it set up for the student mode. So this is how you'd pretty much see things. Now, typically, depending upon if you set your class up, your class preferences up, typically you will have on the left-hand side your class navigation menu. In my case, I don't have it set up that way. It's basically hidden. So if I want to see mine, I click that and I see my class basically navigation menu. Now the area that I'm interested in is I want to look for the task-based simulations that I need to complete during a certain time period. So the first thing I can do is I can take a look at my syllabus. Click on the syllabus, and it's going to bring up a PDF copy of the syllabus, and I can go through the syllabus to where the assignments begin, the weekly assignments. And here we see right here under weekly schedule, and we can see under the weeks 122, 29, and 25 we have been assigned and need to complete simulations 20036, 38, 42, and 42. They're assigned and they're due on February the 11th. Now that's in addition to the two sets of 140 multiple choice questions each that are also assigned. One group being due on the 4th, the other group being due on the 11th. So now we know the task-based simulations that we're going to have to do. Now, another thing that I should want to point out is if you don't want to look them up on the syllabus, those task-based simulations are also available again as part of your navigation menu, where you can go to course content and where it says weeks beginning 122, 129, and 25. If you click on that, what you'll see is in the opening frame is for those weeks, the tasks that occur for weeks 122, 29, and 25. Again, if you go down to the graded assignment section, you'll see the simulations that are assigned and are due on February the 11th, the exact same simulations we talked about. So you can also access the simulations, which simulations you need that way. Now, one final location that you can access these the simulation numbers that you need to complete is you can go back to your navigation menu and look under TBS activity reports, task-based simulation activity reports. You click on the one that is due, task-based simulation activity report due on February the 11th. Now, although it isn't specifically made for this, it will tell you that task-based simulations 20036, 38, and 42 are going to be due, and they have to be placed here. So, with that in mind, let's go ahead now that we know how to, or what simulations we need to select. Let's go to the Surgent software and see how we go about selecting the task-based simulations. Okay, now I'm going again to the Surgent landing page, and you should be fairly familiar with that right now. This is a landing page, and this is what you normally see again. And again, make sure your page is set to auditing and attestation. I can't emphasize that enough. Please make sure you do have it set that way. Now if we go down the page, all the way down to what we call the simulation section. Now what we need to do is we need to select one of these boxes down here, and the box that we're going to want to select is box number 20036. So if I look around down here, I keep looking around, there's 39, 38, 37, And in this particular case, this is simulation box number 20036. I'm going to click on that box. I click on that box and it will take me to simulation number 20036. And you can see here the simulation. There's 4 different simulation items here. And it's asking for each item, choose if the responsibility lies with management or the auditor. Now, each simulation can have different components that you need to solve for. Typically, the left item here, the left column, is a simulation itself, and then in a lot of cases, the right column includes supplementary material such as authoritative literature, such as if you need it, or if you have a simulation that wants you to review audit documents to complete the simulation. You'll find them here. I'm not going to go over those in detail because you'll discover that as you go through your individual simulations. But right now, let's just assume that we're answering some questions. And again, all we have to do is make your choice between management and auditor. Design and implement programs and controls to prevent and detect fraud. I'm going to put down management in this case, so I choose that. Disclose related party transactions of the financial statements. I'm going to put down auditor. Okay, the next one, apply generally accepted accounting principles. I'm going to say auditor again. Now, I'm not necessarily saying these are right. I'm just giving you an example. Comply with the generally accepted auditing standards. I would say auditor again. Let's go that way. And then express an opinion on the financial statements. Let's go with management. Okay, and then furnish written representations. We're going to say management in this case. And then perform procedures to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence. I'm going to use management again. Okay, now I've made all those choices. All I have to do at this point then is submit my simulation. When I submit my simulation, then that simulation will be graded. Now I'm going to go and rather than show you the grading process, because again that's fairly self-explanatory, what I'm going to do now is assume that you have submitted a simulation and now you want to determine basically how well you've done on that simulation. Now let me click the submit simulation button here for a second. And we're going to just use this as an example to see how a simulation, not every simulation, but how a simulation is graded. I submit the simulation and I'm going to get back my simulation results. And here, if the answer is correct, it's in green. If the answer is incorrect, it's in red. And what you can see here is I received a score of 42%. Now, remember that if I score between 50% and in effect 74%, I get, I believe it's 7.5 points. If I score 75 to 100%, I get my full 10 points. Now, what I can do though is, and you can see also it gives you the correct answers and things like this. What I can do is I can go back and I can repeat the simulation by, if I don't think my score, okay, in this particular case, my score wouldn't even hit 50%, so I couldn't even get the 7.5 points. So I would want to try the simulation again. And you can try the simulation as many times as you want until you achieve 75% or better. So I want to point that out. Now, if you want to go back and retry the simulation, you would exit the session. And you'd go back down to the bottom, back to simulation number, I believe 36. And I can click on simulation number 36 again. And I can reattempt the simulation and I can keep attempting for a higher score. And obviously when you see the answers there, it'll be a lot easier as you go along. But the point is not necessarily to copy the answers, the correct answers, but learn from this because you want to be able to learn and become proficient with simulations. As a matter of fact, simulations are now about 50% of what is covered on the within the auditing and attestation portion of the exam. Now let's take an example of when you're done and you're happy with your simulation score. Let's go ahead and take a look at how you can see where those scores are. Okay, you exit your simulation exercise and you're going to go back to your landing page. And when you go back to your landing page, now what you're going to want to do is go back to that little book at the upper right hand corner and where it looks like somebody's reading a book, and you click on that. And now you want to go to the sessions result log to look at the result of the sessions you've just completed on that simulation. So I click on the session results log. And again, the computer's crunching the information. And in this case now, you can see the last simulation I performed for this particular time and was the simulation at 2:52 p.m. I spent 3 minutes and 59 seconds on it. My score for that simulation attempt was basically 43%, and I can view that simulation if I want. And I can verify that was the last simulation I had performed, because now I can see it was simulation 20036, and if I want to, I can review that simulation. Now let's assume right now, let's go back to the dashboard and go back, and I'm going to assume that I had a simulation where I did receive 60%. Now let me take myself back to well, let's try this first. Let's go back to the simulation, the session again, and you can see another situation here where I've attempted a couple of simulations and I didn't get a good score on them, so I've been repeating them trying to get a better score. So let's go down and take a look at the simulations now. And in this case, by the way, this represents the total time on our sessions: 2 minutes 23 seconds, 63.2%, 87 questions answered. We really don't need that information. We need the completed sessions log. So again, this is the simulation we all just attempted. Now let's assume that I had another simulation that I tried at 2:17 p.m. If for this particular simulation I only achieved a score of 10%, so that's not going to give me any points. So, and if you want to see what simulation number that was simulation number, in this case, simulation number 91. And what I can do then is I can go back and take a look at that session report again. And with that then, I can take a look at the second simulation I performed after that one, and that I get up to 40%. Now that happens to be, again, if I take a look at this, simulation number 91. So I can see this second time around I got 40%. I can keep repeating these simulations until I achieve 75% or better. Once I achieve 75% or better, I can't do better than full points at that point, but I can do it as many times as I want. And these simulation sections, in effect, are your proof of the simulation completions. And also, I'll also mention that I do receive this information from Surgeon, not necessarily in this exact format, but again, I can see what simulations you're reporting to me. Now let's talk about self-reporting of simulations. Again, just like the multiple choice questions, the MCQs, you're required to self-report the results of your simulations. So let's go ahead now. In order to do that, what I'm going to do is I go back to my classroom, or yeah, to my MACC 540 classroom, and I navigate down to, sorry about that, I navigate down to the task-based activity reports. In other words, that's where I'm going to report my task-based simulation for this particular time period, the ones that are due on February the 11th. I click on that, and you can see it says submit your TBS 03638 and 42 here, and it talks about each task-based simulation will receive with a score 75% better will receive the full 10 points. Scores between 50 and 74% will earn 7.5 points. Scores less than 50% will receive 0. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to now pull down my task-based reporting sheet, and I can do that by clicking on, oops, I'm sorry, I screwed up, my bad. The first thing I want to do is pull down my task-based simulation sheet, and it's right here. I click on this, and now I can open the task-based simulation sheet, numbers 36, numbers 36, 38, and 42. I need to report the highest score. Let's say it was 80% for 36. 80%. It took me 3 times to complete. Task-based simulation, I got 75%. It took me 1 time to complete. And my other one was 80% again, and it took me 4 times to complete. Okay, so in this case then, I'm done with that. All I need to do then is save the form to my computer, or to your computer rather, and after you do that then, you can take that form, let me move these forms out of the way for a second, and then click on Submit Your Task-Based Simulations, 36, 38, and 42 here. So I click on that, and now I can go ahead and using Browse My Computer, I can browse my computer for that task-based simulation form, not necessarily the pictures I have here, but the task-based simulation form, attach it and submit it as part of my assignment. And that would be the reporting. Again, after you do that, you can check to make sure that your submission is in there, and make sure that also that it contains the data, in other words, the information where you got your percentages and the number of times you tried to complete the task-based simulation. So with that, that is the totality of accessing the correct task-based simulations, and then after you've completed them, reporting them for credit. Thank you for your time.